All right, how's it going, my magnificent sons of bitches? Now, I've decided I was going to go ahead and come back and talk a little bit about this Donald Trump, Vladimir Zelensky thing right before the State of the Union because I understand that there's probably going to be a lot of bullshit thrown out your way. This is from a geopolitical perspective that's, been out there, pretty much available for you to see as far back as 2014. So what we have going on right here is essentially a proxy leader, which it's exactly what Vladimir is. He's a proxy leader in the Ukraine that is ultimately basically coming back to the United States. And, we can see how they're trying to perpetuate this war with Russia. So, back in 2014, basically, actually, it probably spans back to the 1990s. Whenever Russia was still the Soviet Union, probably back in the 80s, we didn't really want communism to go ahead and spread globally. We knew that it wouldn't be beneficial to our beliefs and our values here in the United States for ultimately communism to spread. We can tell right now, through our current state of affairs, that communism is not a very, very sound. It's actually more of a sociopathic ideology. You can tell that by the communists that we have right now in this country. And so, basically it was an effort to go ahead and contain communism. Ultimately, we're looking back at the 80s into the early 90s. The Russians are probably less communist than we are right now, particularly with the, height of hubris that comes out of academia these days. So, in the 90s, the idea was we were going to go ahead and, your dollar is based on oil. It's based on, the production of oil not only in this country, but also in the Middle East. This is why we have so many issues with the Latin American countries whenever they decide that they're going to get to be oil trading countries, is because that it'll compete with your dollar. Well, ultimately, what Russia wanted to do is they wanted to go ahead and get into the oil game. And they wanted to go ahead and sell their oil. And ever since the 90s, basically all those trading partners with Russia that were going to go ahead and get into this market with Russia, the United States has ultimately been trying to topple. This is where you get your 7 wars in 5 years. So in 2014, we get this guy named Obama. You can't tell Obama anything because if you do, you're a racist, bigoted, and every other kind of fucking phobe in the book. So Obama puts in a proxy government, or, it wasn't really Obama. It was pretty much the Hillary Clinton State Department, but it was under the Obama administration. It's the hidden hand bullshit that they do. And they put in a proxy government. Mainly this was known as the Svoboda Party, which was social nationalist, national socialist. You have a lot of people on the left calling everybody Nazis and shit, but you freely installed the Nazis and these various puppet governments that you go ahead and try to install to go ahead and protect your interests, which is exactly what you're trying to do. So the reason why Europe comes out against this so strong is because that Russia would then be an oil trading country. You know what I'm saying? And ultimately, not only would that compete with the American dollar, because now they're competing, they're trading their oil, and, they can go ahead and trade their oil in something other than the USD. And this is where they're trying to make the whole thing of, oh yeah, it's going to come back and start World War III and all this other bullshit, is because they know that that would be a competitor to the petrodollar, which we're on right now. However, with that being said, when you're looking at Russia, Russia is no longer a communist country, and in fact, Russia is probably closer to what we were in the 80s than what we're right now, what we were in the 80s and the 90s, which is probably the height of, the American success story. So, you have Russia doing their thing. They're, they don't really give a fuck about why. Okay, I'll go ahead and get into that a little bit later, but so, they're trying to keep Russia from going ahead and using their resources. Russia wanted to go into Ukraine. Russia wanted to sit there and ask Ukraine in a democratic way if they wanted to go ahead and then join in on Russia so they could go ahead and utilize this oil to go ahead and make agreements with these Middle Eastern countries to go ahead and sell their oil in something other than the US dollar. Initially, Ukraine was good with the idea, but that wouldn't work for the people that are trying to protect the petrodollar. They would too much rather go ahead and inflate your currency into obscurity to go ahead and fund the socialism that is in Europe. And mind you, it is your tax dollars going to go ahead and socialize all those European programs. That's why you're $35 trillion in debt in this country right now. And $400 trillion in global debt is all because of the freeloaders in Europe that have to have their healthcare subsidized. So when we look at Russia and the current relations right now as it stands in Russia, basically the ones that are trying to instigate the shit are mainly the NATO and the European Union right now, which is funny to sit there and say, because at first Russia didn't want to go ahead and instigate any of these efforts, but it's a little late now. Obama had already put in this proxy. Now they desperately trying to get fucking the Ukraine into NATO. And, you know, with not much success, you know, like I said, we have so much liabilities. So, I mean, you know, when you look at Russia and you look at the state of affairs right now, ultimately the diplomatic solution is the best. Going ahead and funding this little fucking tyrannical little dictator comedian guy in the Ukraine to go ahead and hold up some sort of frivolous proxy is absolutely a waste of taxpayer money. It's a waste of fucking time. And essentially it would be a waste of human life if we ended up going into war, which I don't think that we would, because I think that the American people have absolutely had a fucking enough of this shit. So, you know, they're like, oh, well, you know, they're not going to stop at the Ukraine. Russia, Putin is just going to, he's a dictator. No. First off, Putin would have no interest, and it would be against his better interest to go ahead and try to invade a bunch of fucking socialist countries that could barely provide for themselves. You know what I'm saying? He's not going to get a lot of resources going into Europe as it stands right now, because a lot of the, I mean, you're not going to get any real good production out of them, and it's not like you're going to get too much value out of going ahead and trying to what are you going to get out of taking over Europe, right? A bunch of socialist countries who depend on a lot of on the state for a lot of their necessities and needs. He wouldn't want that liability added on to his people. You know what I'm saying? He just wants to be able to go ahead and sell his oil. If it all be up to me, if I was the American president, I'm like, look, you know what? Vladimir, you want to go ahead and market and sell your oil? You know, you want to go ahead and be able to do that? We'll go ahead and allow for that. If you want to go ahead and take the European market and sell your energy-based oil to the European market, we could probably go ahead and live with that as the United States of America. However, with that being said, you know, we're going to want to take the Asian market. So we want to go ahead and take China, Taiwan, all the Asian countries to market our oil. So as long as you go ahead and stay in your lane, you can go ahead and have that European market. You can go ahead and subsidize, go ahead and use that oil to go ahead and pay, you know, to go ahead and, you know, keep the European markets afloat. We go to the Middle East and we say, you go ahead and you use your resources to go ahead and supply the African market. And then we'll go ahead and use our resources to go ahead and supply the Asian markets. You know, we would have enough, more than enough, to go ahead and supply the Americas and to go ahead and generate a pretty good, especially if we partner with Canada and Mexico, we could go ahead and make a pretty good, you know, chunk of change selling our own oil, you know, and using it to back our economy instead of backing other people's fucking socialized healthcare plans. And ultimately, America would be able to go ahead and, you know, balance their budget at some point in time, and maybe go ahead and start to accumulate enough prosperity and wealth to go ahead and raise the standard of living, not only just in this country, but into your Mexicos and Chinas. I mean, Mexicos and Chinas. Well, you know, the idea would be that North Korea and China, they're being an energy trade partner for these people, that their resources and their quality of life would improve too. But we would also be able to improve the quality of life here in Mexico and maybe even Canada, particularly if we get rid of a lot of these, I guess, what you call frivolous programs, unnecessary spending. Let me go ahead and tell you a little secret that if we didn't have the socialized healthcare programs, you would probably already have universal health care for everybody. But what ends up making that an impossibility is the regulations and a lot of the bureaucracy that goes on in the government that they won't tell you. It's probably actually very, very cost effective to get universal health care if you got the government out of the healthcare business altogether. So I mean, there's a lot to go ahead and look into, about the Russia and the Ukrainian stuff. It's more of a proxy war than it's an actual war. I don't see it going live anytime soon, and I don't think that Americans have any interest of it going live, and I don't believe that Russia has any interest of it going live. I do believe that it is the Europeans. I believe that the Europeans are scared to death. But there yet again, why would I go ahead and side with the people who have been leeching off the American taxpayer for all these fucking years? They have all these snarky opinions and they look down their noses at us at the same point in fucking time. Why would I go ahead and side with you whenever I know that y'all are not going to really contribute a lot to any kind of war campaign anyways? You'll just sit there and turn around and pretend like it's all our fault. Like we're the aggressors, we're the evil bad guys, we're the colonizers, and we're all this bullshit. Even though time and time again, it's generally you people that go ahead and instigate the stuff. And like I said, then you go ahead and demand for us to go ahead and subsidize your way of life at the American taxpayer dollar. Well, it's just of no real interest to us. I mean, whenever it was 2008 and we had those banker collapses, how much did we really get back from those help did we get back from those European countries? We didn't. They just let the banks collapse. You know what I'm saying? And then, they could have potentially did that with some trades and some markets and stuff like that. It was easily avoidable is what I'm saying. But Europe never comes to our aid when we need them. But whenever they need us, then they want us to go ahead and go ahead and abide by certain treaty negotiations. Y'all don't really chip in enough to go ahead and warn us going and to getting into a World War III conflict of this magnitude with Russia. It just doesn't make any fucking sense. So, they can go ahead and browbeat you. They can go ahead and get those media propagandists to come out there and claim that you're a Russian agent and shit like that. But y'all are losing confidence. People have no trust in you people anymore. But anyways, that's pretty much the short and skinny of it. You people tell me what you think. You like, sub, do the shit the internet tells me to do to get over. And for now, I'm out.